Right, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Aris, for doing this talk. Such short notice, and we hope Leon is gonna get better soon, because we're very excited about his talk. Also, thanks Sander for joining as a panelist.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So now let's go to Aris and let's find out more about Electron.
Cool. Let's see about Electron then. So Alex, the fun fact about this talk is that I used to live in Birmingham when I was a student at the university. I made my master's of science degree there. So I'm very happy that I could do a talk in the Angular Birmingham meetup. So thanks very much for that. But I hope Leo will be here with us soon.
Yep, fingers crossed.
Okay, so my name is Aristeidis Bampakos, but you can call me Aris if you want, because if you are not a native Greek speaker, it's harder to pronounce. And I live in Greece, in the Athens, which is the capital of Greece. And today I'm going to talk to you how to electronify your Angular application, or in other words, how to run your Angular application in desktop mode with Electron. So the purpose of this talk is not so much the implementation details, how Electron integrates with Angular, but to showcase the power of the Angular framework that can be combined with so many technologies and create high-performant applications. So the agenda of today is, first, we will see some of the basics of the Electron library. Then we will see how to integrate an Angular application with Electron. And then we will learn how to do it very easily without writing any code using a tool that I have created. And also bonus content is that I will show you some progress on this tool that I have made in the past month. So some things about me first. I work as a web development team leader at the company here in Greece called PlexEarth, and I'm also a Google developer expert for the Angular framework. I'm member of the organizers team at another meetup here in Greece, the Angular Athens meetup, and also occasionally I work as a senior Angular instructor at the Code Hub Educational Institute, where we teach the power and the techniques of the Angular framework to other developers and professionals. For those that know me well, I am a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed video game franchise. I have played all of the video games. I have bought all the books, and when I have time, I like very much to play, especially the last one, which is called Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for those that are fans. The last 2 years during the pandemic, I have authored 2 books about Angular with Pact Publishings. The first one that you can see also in the tweet is called Learning Angular 3rd edition, and it is destined for developers that want to begin learning the Angular framework. It teaches you the basics, and it's not so theoretical, but it has many examples. And the second book, which is available from this July, it's called Angular Project 2nd edition, and it is destined for developers that have already reached the level of the beginner in Angular and want to dive deeper into this framework. And it learns you how to combine the Angular framework with different hot emerging technologies. So each chapter is a different project. And one chapter of this, I had the honor to write for Cli.io, the first static website generator for Angular, that Sander is a co-creator, I think, Sander.
Cool. Yeah, I'm created most of Cli.io, yes. I'm the lead architect on Cli.
And today also I saw that you have announced the support for Angular version 13, right?
Yes. And that's not the only thing that's there. There is also like a platform server renderer in there. If you use that, it goes a little bit faster, like a factor 10 faster. So
cool.
If you have a big site, you can still use Cli.
I would say that you can use Cli for any site, right? So let's dive deeper into the talk. What is Electron? Electron, or Electron.js as it's called, is a JavaScript framework that allows you to create cross-platform desktop applications by writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript or TypeScript. And when we say cross-platform, it means that Electron applications can run on macOS, Linux, and Windows. Electron is built with Node.js and Chromium. So if you have web skills, you can leverage them and create awesome desktop applications. It is an NPM client, an NPM package that you can install using the npm install command. But Electron is installed in the development dependencies of your web project because it is actually used only to package your application as a desktop, as a native desktop window. There are many applications that have been built with Electron. So, for example, Visual Studio Code, which we all know, Slack, WhatsApp, and there are many, many more that you can check out in the official documentation website of Electron. So let's see a bit about the architecture of Electron. An Electron application consists of two different processes. The main process, which is responsible for making heavy tasks and complex calculations, for example, when you want to interact with the file system, and it is this process that actually gives you access to the native resources of your local system using the API of Node.js. The other process is the render process, which is responsible for managing the user interface of your application. It is actually this process that handles the web pages of your application, like a single HTML file, index HTML file. Now, an Electron application follows the Chromium multiprocess architecture. So in any Electron application, you can have only one main process that can communicate with different renderer processes. But each renderer process operates in complete isolation. So if you want to communicate from one renderer to the other, you must go through the main process. And how do you do that? There is a mechanism in Electron which is called Inter-Process Communication Mechanism, or IPC, its initials, and it actually sets up a common channel in the main and the render process, and they can communicate asynchronously by exchanging messages. So how do we write a Hello World Electron application? As we saw earlier, Electron is JavaScript framework. So you can write pure JavaScript and create an Electron app. In this sample, for example, we have created a single main.js file, and we have put all the necessary code which is required for a simple Hello World application. First, we import two objects from the Electron npm package, the app object, which is a global object of the Electron, like our browser, and the browser window object, which is the window that is loaded inside this app object. You can think of it as the tab of your browser. Then we use the browser window constructor to create our window, and we give it some dimensions, a width and a height, as options. Then we call the load file method of the window, passing a single HTML file. This HTML file will be rendered inside our desktop window. Now, the creation of the window must be done when our application is ready. And this is indicated by the when ready promise, which is when resolved, it indicates that our app is ready. So we have created our JavaScript file. How do we run it? Since we have downloaded the Electron npm package, we can open our terminal and use the Electron executable file, passing the full path of the main.js file that we saw earlier. So if we run this command in our terminal, we will see our index HTML file rendered inside a desktop window in our computer. Right. Generally, I like ice creams very much, and when I need to think for complex things in my everyday development, I used to think like ice cream, right? So let's think a high-level overview of an Electron application like ice cream. The base of the ice cream is our main process. So if we put in our ice cream the default flavor, which is our application assets written in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, then we will not have an ordinary ice cream, but an Electron application. Now, what if we want to use a different flavor for our ice cream? For example, an Angular flavor, which is actually what we should do if we want to load an Angular application inside an Electron window. Things are a bit complicated in this process because we need to establish a complex build pipeline where the two code bases are built at the same time. What I mean is you take the Electron code, the main.js that we saw, and you optionally pass it through a bundler if you want. And you output, the bundler will output, for example, a JavaScript file called cell.js. We name it cell because we like to think that the Electron is the cell for our application. Then the Angular code is built with Angular CLI and it outputs a single main.js file. Now, this main.js is not the main.js of the Electron code base. This is the Angular code base. So these two files are generated inside the same dist folder that the Angular CLI uses. And then...
Hey, Aris, can I ask a question? Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, of course.
If you use Angular, you can use the Ngx compiler to get JavaScript files. Wouldn't it be easier to just use the Ngx compiler and then just load the stuff with ASCII5 modules inside of your shell?
Yeah. So you're actually saying to compile our code not with CLI but with Ngx, right? Yeah, I haven't tried, but as an idea, yeah, it could be. But I think that in Angular version 13, Ngx will not be used.
Not ngcc, Ngx. It's something different. Ngcc is the thing that reconciles your libraries. Yeah. Ngx is the Angular compiler itself. Mm-hmm. And it basically is just like TypeScript, but you throw an Angular application at it and you get like JavaScript files out.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, of course, I think you could do. Another option that you have also told me, Sander, is maybe using ESBuild, right? Instead of Webpack, for example. Maybe we could fire up the ESBuild and build our main.js file.
It's a Node application. You don't need to build. You can just load all the separate files in.
All right, okay, yeah. Yeah, I haven't tried with Ngx, but I like tooling. I like to use tooling as it is. I don't touch so many things that are more deeply inside the tooling.
Yeah, that might just be me.
I haven't tried yet. I haven't tried, but it would be interesting to try it.
Good. Keep me informed. Then I don't have to need to do it myself.
Thanks. So then you can use the Electron npm executable and pass the cell.js file as a parameter to load your application. Now, someone may wonder, how does cell.js finds the Angular code? Well, the cell.js is the main.js that we saw earlier that loads the index HTML file. And that index HTML file is the main HTML file of our Angular application. So as soon as they are in the same folder, the Electron code base can find the Angular code base and its files. Okay, an alternate approach an alternate approach of loading a single file inside an Electron window is loading a URL inside Electron. So in this example, all we have changed is we have replaced the load file method with the load URL method that accepts a single URL, a single URL as a parameter. Now, this URL could be your web server that hosts your Angular application somewhere. For example, in this case, we are targeting the localhost 4200 address, which is the default one for the Angular CLI. Of course, there are some differences between the file approach and the URL approach that we saw right now. The file approach is more secure because you're actually loading files from your file system. So what could possibly go wrong if you don't load any external content? But the deploying such an application is more complex because you need to build the two code bases at the same time. So if you want to update a part of the Angular code, you need to build both code bases from the start, from the beginning. Now, the URL approach is more prone to security problems because you're actually loading a URL inside your Electron window. So if your URL is in the web, outside in the internet, bad things may happen, right? Maybe someone could intervene and gives you a different URL, a malicious URL. But it is more simple to deploy it because you're building each code base separately. For example, if you want to update your Angular code, you make a change, you compile it with Angular CLI or with NGC as standard proposed, and then you deploy it to your web server. The Electron application will still work because it points to that URL, right? So everything will be okay. But instead of establishing such a complex build pipeline that I show you, you could leverage a tool that I have created, which is called Ngx Electronify. And it is an Angular library. Actually, it is an Angular CLI builder, which has been built with Angular CLI Builder API, and allows you to run your Angular application in desktop mode inside this Electron window. All you have to do is install it in your Angular CLI workspace or in your NX workspace, because the library supports NX, and you can install it by invoking the add command of the ng-add command of the Angular CLI, passing the name of the library. I will show you now a demo of this library, and I will also show you the latest development that I'm currently working. So, right. So I think my zoom is okay. If it's not, let me know. And in this directory, I have created a very simple Angular CLI application, and it is actually the minimal one. It's not the default Angular CLI application. It has the minimum content. So if I want to serve this application into a web server, I will use the Angular CLI, the ng command, and I will run the ng serve. Okay, so our application is served on localhost 4200. If we open it, we can see that it is a normal Angular application, right? Let's see now how we can run it in desktop mode with an Electron. Let me kill that. Okay. I've already installed the Ngx Electronify library using the command that I showed you earlier. So all I need to do now is use again the Angular CLI, ng, and execute the run command, passing the name of my application, colon, the word desktop. Now this command will invoke the library. The library will start building the Angular application using the Angular CLI. It actually hooks into the Angular CLI build event, and it will open the same application, but in a desktop window. This is a desktop window. How we can tell is a desktop window? It has the toolbar, the minimize, maximize, close buttons. It has the file menu here. And of course, this window here is just a common window. So we have all the tools, like the developer tools that Google Chrome has. If I want to invoke them, you can see that it is the standard Devtools that we use in Google Chrome. We can inspect the application, we have the console, we have the network to see the network traffic and all this stuff. So, when I was building this application, I would like to thank my friend, Jeffrey, which is from the Angular Dutch, and he's a very good friend. He helped me so much, so I would like to thank him. And now I will show you some developments that I have done using this tool. Alex, I think we have them, right?
Yes, yep.
Cool. Let me open the source code. Okay, one of the latest developments that I have done in this library is integrating the Angular Devtools. For those that don't know, Angular Devtools is the way to profile and debug Angular applications. It is a Google Chrome extensions that you can download. I don't remember which is the URL, but I think Alex or Sander could post it somehow. So if I run it here, if I debug my application, now this is the source code. I don't want to go through this source code, maybe another time, because it's not so interesting. So I will invoke the npm script to build it locally. Sorry, to serve it. And if we start debugging it right now, okay, here is the Electron window that we saw earlier. If we go to developer tools, come on. No. Okay, if we go to the Angular, this is the tab of Angular Devtools. If you install the extension, you will see in the developer tools of Google Chrome a tab called Angular. So if I select it, it loads Angular Devtools. In this application, you can't see much, but one of the features that it has is that you can highlight the component when you focus over when you hover over the component. It selects the corresponding HTML in the template. So in a latest version, because I haven't published it yet, if you install the Ngx Electronify, you will be able to invoke the Angular Devtools inside your Angular application, and imagine that you will be able to debug an Angular application that is hosted in another somewhere else in a web server without using Google Chrome. So maybe someone could use this tool as just an Angular debugging tool. Let's go back to the slides now. So, what are the next? What are some of the upcoming features of this library? As we have already seen, the integration of the Angular Devtools will be published in, soon. The other two features that I would like to add are to give the developer the ability to export this desktop Angular application as a single executable file, so you can take it and distribute in any way, either through a USB stick or sending it over email. I wouldn't suggest to send it over email because Electron applications are very large. And the second one is to give the ability to interact with the Electron API, which is actually the Node.js API. So to have communication from your Angular application to the Node.js API.
So that means you have full access to the file system and everything that the computer has to offer.
Yeah, correct. Thanks, Sander. So some comments about security. Some people believe that Electron is a browser, but it's not, right? It may look like a browser, but it is far away from a browser because a browser has a very big team. For example, Google has a large team that develops Google Chrome and enriches it with security features all the time. Electron has the minimum security features that can have, so it is up to the developer to enable or disable certain security parameters in their application. We should never forget that Electron loads web pages, and every security problems that exist in a web page exist also in Electron. Some people ask me, why should I use Electron? Do I need it? I think that there are three common use cases that someone may consider building an Electron application. The first one, if you want to have multi-tab environment in your application, just like a browser does. Or if you want your application to have a native look and feel and be like a native desktop window. And the third one, and the most important, is if your team is web skill oriented. For example, if you have an Angular team and you want to create a desktop application, why you should learn a desktop language, C# or C++? You should go with Electron. In this slide, I have put some resources from the Electron website, like the Quick Start Guide or some best practices that are concerned with security. And the last one is the Google Dev Lib, is my profile on the Google Dev Library website, where you will find the Ngx Electronify and other Angular open source projects that I have created. Google Dev Library, that those that don't know, is a website where you can find open source projects and articles that have been created or written with Google technologies, for example, Android, Flutter, Firebase, and of course, Angular. So, just a recap. Today, we saw some of the basics of the Electron library, how to integrate the hard way an Electron and an Angular application, and how to make it more simple using the Ngx Electronify. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Alex, for the opportunity, and I hope you liked it. I would be very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Aris. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I've heard of Electron, but I've never actually seen it kind of in practice, so now it makes a lot of sense, or more sense for me at least, of what it is and how it works. So let's see some questions here from Dan. When you install a PWA, does it use Electron.js or just a private browser tab with no header menu and toolbar?
PWA is not related with Electron.js. It's just a browser window. It uses it actually uses your browser to load the web page as an installable application.
Yeah, it's not even a private browser. It's just like your common browser.
Yeah, but PWAs have progressed very much the last days. There is a project which is called Project Fugu that tries to fill the gaps between the desktop and the web applications. For example, handling file system interaction. PWAs didn't have file system interaction, but with this project, they have managed to bridge this gap. So I think PWAs will be a good alternative for an Electron application.
For most cases, yes, but if you not directly need to access some hardware that is not supported on the web, a boatload of hardware is already supported on the web, like USB, serial ports, Bluetooth. Those are already provided, but there are still a lot of things that are not accessible to a web application. If you want to go directly on the network stack, for example, or a boatload of things, those are not available for a PWA, and they will be available to an Electron app. So I think the major use case is having an installable application is one, and second is you have full access to all the hardware a computer provides. So that is a big reason to go for Electron. I think nowadays having the native look and feel on desktop is getting more and more meaningless, because less and less people actually know what a native application looks like. They get confused by menus and stuff like that because they have never seen a menu on their phone like that. So if they see it on the desktop application, they go like, what is this? It doesn't look like my application that I'm used to. Which is good, because the whole UX of a menu system is usually not that good. There are applications where that differs. I think the main reason is direct access to hardware, installable application that you can ship easily without be reliant on the internet. Internet is everywhere nowadays, except if you are on a place where there is no connection whatsoever. And with an Electron app, you can just plug in a USB stick or a CD-ROM. Those things still exist, and run your application.
Sander, there is a trend right now that many companies, they just wrap their websites as a desktop window with Electron. And with the URL approach that I have demonstrated, it's really, really easy to do this, because you just ship the Electron window that points to your website address, and then you only update your website when you want to. So they have it,
Yeah, but that is like, I don't know. It's like silly. Just use a browser and tell the users. The only upside of that is that you still have the access to the Electron shell, so you can still do things that you cannot do in a normal running website. So if you're building your web application, you can detect, hey, am I running in Electron? Oh, yes. Oh, I have this superpower now. And I can print directly without 6 layers of pop-ups saying that you want to print something.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another good reason to use Electron, because you can just have a print button that prints and no pop-ups like 6 layers of windows that say, do you want to print this? Do you want to make a PDF out of this? Do you want to print this PDF that you just made? Are you sure you want to print this? Printing on the internet is so annoying.
Have never done it. I have never tried. As a developer, right? As a developer, I mean.
Oh, I've done printing on, because printing is I'm in business applications, so printing is a prominent part of business application. People need things like invoices and stuff like that. And if you have Electron app, you can just have like, okay, I'm done, and then the printer goes, oh, without 16 different pop-ups, which is like so nice.
Cool. Let's see another question for Dan, and this is one of a security-related one, which I think you kind of touched up on it, Aris. So
that's a good question.
Yeah, as soon as it is a web page. No, I mean web course consideration. Yeah.
It depends.
No, if it is in the case of the URL approach, you're going through your website, through the website that you're loading. So you will have the same course considerations as you were opening your website in a web browser. But if you load the index HTML file locally, I don't think so that you will have problems. What's your take, Sander?
I think you still might have some problems with some resources. But the thing is, you can just tell Node, go load this file, and there are no course limits on Node whatsoever. So yes, you can easily walk around this using Electron. And if you use the website approach, it's the same as using a normal website. If you load from file, I'm a little bit curious what it's going to do. I think there are less limited, but still some.
When you load, Sander, in the file approach that you load the HTML file from your local file system, it opens it with the file protocol.
I think the browser protection still kicks in. It's part of the engine they use to render the page. So I think they still use Blink for this. And this is part of Blink. Not all of it, but it is part of Blink. So there might still be some things. I've never tested it. Because if you really need to work around this, you are running a Node application, and you can do all of your requests through Node and get it in that way, and you have no limits on course whatsoever. Also, you're not limited to port 80 anymore. You can go wherever you like. If you're in the browser, you only have access to the port your browser is running on. You cannot go to a different port. You cannot say, hey, go to this or that, or even a different protocol. There are some possibilities, but it's really, really hard. With Node, you have those limits are all gone.
In the company that we use Electron in Angular, in an application that we're connecting in various and multiple endpoints that are not controlled by our company, right? They are XML-based endpoints. I haven't faced any course problem.
No, probably it depends on the person you're talking to. Course is not a problem of your application. Course is a problem of. It's also not a problem. It's like a feature. Basically, it saves you from surfing the entire internet for free. But it depends basically on the guy you're asking to. If you are talking to a public server that is not putting any course restrictions on the things they're putting out, which would be stupid, but then you can use it without problems. Quite often, if you're talking to a service, you need to include a header or something like that, and they know you are so they don't need to do the course thing because you are validated anyway.
Yeah, maybe in my case, because we're
Or they just don't care.
Sorry?
Or they just don't care and say, no, everyone can get these resources. It's free for the net.
Probably this is the case because these endpoints are public endpoints with map data, so that everyone can access.
Yeah, they probably have disabled CORS, or they just set CORS to star, which don't allow everything, but for like GET requests, that's more than enough. I must say your talk has grown. It's better than the first time I saw it. I think the first time I saw it was the first time you did the talk.
Yeah. I want to do a question on Sander now. Where should I use the NGC? Am I going to have any, benefits instead of using the Angular CLI?
You don't need any bundler. You just compile the Angular application, which is like just as fast as TypeScript compile, basically. A little bit slower, not that much slower. And then you can just use it. And that works really well. And it works really well with Node, because you can just basically import whatever as just ES5 modules. Import from your Angular application and everything will be there. It's basically create a small tsconfig, ngc that tsconfig, and make sure that you know where the output is going, so you can load it from there.
Now, you're actually talking about the Angular code, right? Not the Electron code.
No, the Angular code, yeah.
So if you have translation, you're not going to get a translation, because the translations happens after that, isn't it? If you have like IATN tags in there, or not, or am I wrong?
I would have to try. I think the internationalization tags are there, but the results are not loaded yet, because that is getting done by tooling later on.
Yeah, so that's another step.
That's another step. So you might need to do this other step too. I would be interested in trying that out. And I have a feeling that I might need to pretty soon.
It's a niche.
For some reason. No, it's not a niche. It's
one big disadvantage of the Electron applications is that if you want to create a Hello World application, like the first that I saw, you package it as a single executable file, right? There are some tools that allows you to package it and make it an executable file. So if you do this, let's say you have a single main.js file, your final output bundle will be 130 megabytes. I have used with Angular. The Angular Hello World is about 22 kilobytes under, I think so. 22 kilobytes. If you package it, you get 150 megabytes Angular application. I mean, that's insane.
Well, no. You're looking at from the viewpoint of a web developer. And for a web developer, 150 megabytes is insane. For an application developer, they go like, 150 megabytes? Wow. How do I get my application so small? For reals, because most runtime environments for desktop applications are huge. They are how big is your Word application? Go check in your file system.
Gig.
Yeah.
Gigabytes.
Yeah.
And there are a couple just check a couple of your application folders. Just go to your program files and check the sizes of those things. 150 megabytes is not that bad. Actually, if you do like direct C and compile directly without any runtime, you get a really, really small program, like a few kilobytes. But nobody knows how to do that anymore. Yeah. Well, there are a few people that can do it, but there are not that many people that can build anything from scratch without any third party or default library things in there. And most default libraries are already bigger than this 150 megabytes.
Another thing that Sander has told me in another talk that I did, the same content, was that maybe we don't need to bundle the Electron code because, and he was right, because at the end you don't gain something. The code, if you build an Electron application, right, and you distribute as an executable file, and I download this application, I can see the source code inside. So you're not actually gaining something from that.
No, not much.
Only if your application needs to be very high performant and very quick, to be in a good speed, you know.
Actually, it's slower if you bundle it into one thing because it has to unpack every time you start it.
Yeah.
So it all depends. It makes it easier to distribute because it's just one file. You can shoot it over and people can click this thing. And people know, hey, I'm getting like a 150 megabyte exit in my email. Oh, that's a good thing. I can click that. We trained people to do that. Right?
What about updates? Because if you ship, an executable, how do you get the updates? I guess there should be
You ship a new executable. Have you ever looked at Windows updates?
Yeah, but I don't know. I was thinking like, VSCode. I'm not sure if it's still an Electron app, because at some point it was an Electron app. Is it still an Electron app?
Yeah.
No,
VSCode
not
is
anymore.
Electron app. No, Sander, what?
I know it was at
Sure.
some point, but I'm not sure if it still is.
It was way back. It was an Electron app. It isn't anymore.
Right.
VS Code.
VSCode, yeah.
Okay.
'Cause
There are a lot of
when they update, now you don't have to install the app. It just you restart it. So actually, I'm not sure if it downloads a new app or is something inside. I don't know.
VSCode is a big application, and it has like the outer run shell, which is something like Electron. I think it might be even a forked version of Electron, but I don't think it's Electron anymore. I recall that they stepped away from Electron because of some issues with Electron.
they list it as an Electron application on their site.
I know they are listed there.
Okay.
The Electron team is never going to take them off because they once were an Electron application. I don't think VSCode is an Electron application anymore. I can be wrong. I'm not 100% sure of this, but there were some problems with it, and I was talking with the maintainers of VSCode, and they told me they dropped Electron at a certain point. But
really?
perhaps they tracked back and...
what about Teams? Teams. I think Teams is an Electron application, right? Microsoft
That
Teams.
might be an Electron application, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Microsoft might have created their own shell that is like an involvement of Electron.
Got it.
So I totally.
Do you do any stuff with Electron in Scali or not? No. But you do with Chromium, right? Almost.
I use Puppeteer. There is going to be a few updates there. Puppeteer runs Chromium. We are going to have like Playwright on support pretty soon, which is not using Chromium but Edge, which is Chromium but not Chromium. And I just today finished the platform server renderer. So we have now a Cli platform server, which is not using a browser at all.
Oh, like the Angular platform server.
Yeah, it is that from platform server. I'm using the Angular platform server to render pages, and that makes for a little bit better speed, like 10 times faster. So it's a slight upgrade. It's not for all application because there are some restrictions, and they are similar to the restrictions there are in the universal application. They are less severe because we are doing some things very different from universal. But still, you need to make sure that some things are done the Angular way. And it's a little bit more strict than running through Puppeteer. By running through Puppeteer, we can say any Angular application will work with Cli. If you want to use the platform server, probably not all applications are going to run, but they are going to run much faster. I have a test application over here where I can run like 3,300 pages in 30 seconds on my computer. To put this in comparison, if you run the same application through, run it through with the Puppeteer renderer, it takes 300 seconds. So it's really faster. I can show a run if you like. I don't know if Alex has time in his thing.
Let's go. We've got 30 seconds, you said. Let's see it.
Yes, share. I will share. Will share a single window because I have too much things going on and I was not really prepared. Share a screen. Share a screen. Screen 2. Okay, what screen? Oh, okay. I
can see some lines in there. Yeah, might have to zoom in a little bit or increase the font size because it's too small.
This is better, I think.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I can probably do Node. What a coincidence. It's in my buffer. So I'm now building the application. I'm compiling the Angular application. I'm starting up 96 workers. And now it is going to render a couple of pages. And this will take like a couple of seconds. I just said like 30. So I need to talk for, it's taking 22 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And I take like 4 milliseconds for each page to render. And this is like a full Cli run.
Crazy. Nice.
And you saw the remark. Can I scroll up there? Oh, scroll on the right thing. Let's move it.
It's a lot of data. A lot.
Yeah, like 3,000.
He's scrolling.
Oh, my scroll buffer is not that big. I'm going to rerun it again and break it off. Oh, I touched up the interface also a little bit, so it looks a little bit nicer on the CLI.
I hope you don't break my chapter, Sander.
I broke it off, so... No, nothing is broken. Everything still works exactly the same. For this thing, I have no documentation just yet. I still need to create the documentation. That's why I didn't announce it bigly just yet. It is available. It's basically beta, alpha-ish. If you are feeling giddy, go give it a try. But you see, I'm in here. I'm compiling your Angular application. It's really compiling. I'm using NCC here too. And then I'm starting up like 96 workers, which are really different threads. My computer has like a couple of CPUs. And I found it for my test application that I can run 3 threads on one CPU without a problem. It seems that for this way of building applications, 3 times the number of core is like the ideal ground. So I can quickly, can I? Yeah. Let's see.
Live development with Cli. Okay. Live from the Cli offices.
That's... Oh. In here is the enable Cli platform server. This is basically all the changes you have to do to your config file. That's it. You need to add one file to your project, which is like a module that hooks in all the stuff that is needed for the platform server. And I totally forgot what I wanted to show. Probably this. Is this? Oh, I want to disable this thing. And I'm going back here, and you will see. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm not going to run. I'm now running without the new renderer, and I'm only rendering like a couple of pages now. It's now starting Puppeteer. So this is the same project, nothing changed. I only removed this one line, and I told it to generate a couple of less pages. It's not slow, but let me quickly change it back.
Sander, is there a schematic for the new, an update schematic for the new behavior?
No.
Do we need? We don't need any.
There is not. No, you don't need a schematic for that.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, warming up 69 workers is a little bit too much because I only have like a couple of pages. Well,
Boom.
you see, it is like faster.
A lot faster, man.
It also runs.
Awesome stuff.
I have a sample blog. Sample blog is my basically kitchen sink application where everything that Cli can do is available. And it might not. Yeah, it probably will run. You see, it's still way faster than it was before.
Yeah.
This seems like a boatload slower. There are a couple of things in here that are waiting like 3 seconds on purpose to mimic like slow things on the back end and other stuff. So this speed is not really telling because it is slowed down on purpose for testing purposes. So we make sure that if the thing is not like there is a network error here, which is basically a network timeout. Actually, this is the error from that you will see in the console.log from your application. This is not an error from Cli. This is the error from the application itself that would normally go to the console log. I have another one here. Those are errors that are going to the console log. Normally, you're now seeing it in your own console log. And that is... Look, we have the AP slow here, and the 2000 means it's waiting 2 seconds. And waiting 2 seconds in this thing makes that everything is going to be so much slower. So this thing is, it is doing everything Cli can do. Because it is Cli, it's the same thing. You might need to clean up your application a little bit if you have a boatload of third parties that are not behaving themselves really, really well. They might not work. There are a couple of things coming along the line which might be interesting. It's not there yet. It's going to take a while, but we're going to have a fallback system. So if it doesn't render correctly with this renderer, we can fall back to Puppeteer and say, hey, this thing, oh, I got an error. I will start up Puppeteer and run the thing to Puppeteer. It will take forever, like 40 milliseconds, but you still have like the correct output. There will be a server-ish like thing. So you have like a server that renders the pages on the fly. We might even start adding support for sessions and stuff like that, but that is like far out and probably only part for the enterprise stuff. So that is where I've been cooking up last week.
Wow, nice. Thank you so much for sharing this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
I have a question, Sander, about this. Can I do it? Can I ask?
I know somebody that knows an answer.
Okay. Is there any chance that the problem of dynamic routes will ever be resolved? What I mean, often they ask me, I want to use Cli or another pre-rendering technology, and I have 1,000 different routes. What should I do?
Just use Cli.
Yeah, but Cli will go through each of them and recreate each page, right?
That's the idea of a static site generator, yes.
Yeah. They don't like it. They don't like this approach. I don't know why.
You are doing this because the startup speed for your customer, and you have like really proper SEO, because all pages are there indeed, even for web crawlers that are not able to run JavaScript. And believe me, the web crawlers that are able to run JavaScript are not as good as they say they are. Everyone that does a little bit about with SEO knows about this. SEO, yeah.
It's gonna be blazing fast to load, especially if it's cached.
Yeah, it's there. The pages are pre-rendered, so everything is there. If you use Cli it's hard to not use it correctly, but if you optimize your site a little bit for Cli and you use transfer state, and all the data will there be in sync before the Angular application starts, so there is no flash. You don't need a server anymore, so you don't have like a big hefty database server available anymore, because you can basically embed all of this data into most of your data into your HTML pages. So yeah, we have.
Most of the times, I tell them that if you want to have such dynamic page generation, then maybe you don't need pre-rendering, right?
The dynamic pages is like a double-edged sword. Everyone thinks they have dynamic pages, and then you ask, what is so dynamic at them? Yeah, I have like 10,000 products. Okay, are you replacing your 10,000 products every day? No. How many are you replacing every day? 0.3. Basically, we are adding like 1 or 2 a week. So you have like 10,000 static pages, and you're adding like 2 or 3 a week. Yeah, you don't have dynamic pages.
That's right, yeah.
Quite often that's the case.
It's a trap. Pre-rendering is a trap.
So there are truly dynamic things. If it's truly dynamic, don't use a gem stack generator for your site, because that's not the right tool for the job. If you want to have like fast startup and like proper CEO support, if you want to wean yourself away from like 100,000 AP requests every minute to like none, Cli is the tool for you. Or a little bit. Basically, if you have like a product site and you have 10,000 different products, what you can do is basically can pre-generate all the product pages, because the products are not changing that much. And you probably have like a CMS that changes a product, so you know, oh, I have this project, and Cli can generate that one page if you need to. You don't have to regenerate all 10,000 all the time. Even with the new thing, that's really a possibility, because it will take you like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But you probably want to regenerate just the one page and deploy the one page. There are ways for that.
Cool.
And we are going to put out some extra helpers there in the future as soon as we have some more funding or people paying for this stuff. So I will stop sharing my screen unless you want to see something more. I'm even worse than Aris. I have always more.
We'll save it for another time. Cool then. I think we shall wrap it up here then. Thank you again, Aris. Thank you, Sander, for joining
Thank
us.
you.
It's been a pleasure to have you here. So I will see you next time in December. Bye-bye.
Bye.